Okay, we're live. Hi, Roger. Thank you very much for joining LeWeb in this Google Plus Hangout with our community. So, Roger, you're the founder and now the CEO of. Let me try and get it right. MemoryDealers.com. I guess we'll be talking about Bitcoin quite a lot during this hangout today, but perhaps you could start and introduce yourself a little bit, how you came here and what exactly are you working on at the moment.
Right. I'm the founder of MemoryDealers.com, but the only reason that's probably interesting to any of the people that are here is because I was one of the first mainstream businesses to start accepting Bitcoin in my business. Since I discovered Bitcoin in late 2010, I've been involved in Bitcoin-related things full-time, and I'm an investor in a number of different Bitcoin startups, and really excited about all the positive ways in which Bitcoin is going to change the world.
Fantastic. And so you were one of the first merchants to accept Bitcoin, and I think I've seen some ads on the streets and about this. So what was your strategy to let people know that you were accepting Bitcoin? Did you have any kind of campaign to talk about this?
Yeah, the first thing I did is there was a Bitcoin wiki page that listed all the businesses that accept Bitcoin, and at that time there were maybe around 10 or 12 businesses listed. And most of them were just people that were kind of selling things that they made at their home, kind of like alpaca socks. But then I added my business, Memory Dealers, to that list. And then I had a billboard that I was already renting to advertise my business on the side of a real busy expressway in Silicon Valley. And then I updated the design on that billboard to say that we accept Bitcoin. And just by good luck, the timing was perfect there. And that billboard actually was all over the news and magazines and newspapers around the world. And suddenly it seemed real to people because there was a physical billboard that advertised that we accept Bitcoins, even though we were accepting it for real technical products that most people don't need in their daily lives at that point.
And how, I mean, did it have any changes in terms of the products that you sold at Memory Dealers? Did you had a spike in clients and customers in general?
We definitely had a huge spike in web traffic of people coming to take a look. What we've actually launched since then is BitcoinStore.com, which gets a huge amount of traffic. It actually gets a lot more traffic than Memory Dealers ever got at this point. And it offers more than 500,000 consumer electronics products. So, cameras, CPUs, memory, anything that you would actually use in your day-to-day life. We have more than 500,000 of those available for sale, most of which are cheaper than Amazon or Newegg or any of the major shopping sites in the United States. So we get dozens of orders every day from people all over the world. So it's really exciting to see that taking off. And the only payment method we accept is Bitcoin. We don't accept credit cards. We don't accept PayPal. It's Bitcoin only.
That's really exciting. And we'll get to the consumer side of Bitcoin in just a second. Just before talking about consumers and using Bitcoin in the day-to-day life, why don't we take a few seconds to go back to the concept of Bitcoin? And I would have a question regarding the value of Bitcoin. So of course, you can mine for Bitcoins, and this might be one of the most important aspects that basically give the intrinsic value of Bitcoin. But do you think that there are other aspects which basically drive the offer and demand of Bitcoin in general?
I think one important thing to point out is that there's actually no such thing as intrinsic value. All value is subjective. So whether it's gold or Bitcoins or the US dollars, things are only worth what people are willing to pay or trade for them. So, and the reason Bitcoin is worth around $130 a Bitcoin now is because people value them because they're incredibly useful to use as money. It's the only money that's ever existed in the history of the world that you can send to or from anyone else anywhere in the world. And you don't have to worry about what some banker or politician decides that they want to do. You don't have to worry about the bank being closed for a national holiday. You just send the money and boom, it's there, and you don't have to worry about anything else. So people absolutely love that. And the fact that people are realizing how convenient that is the reason that Bitcoins are now around $130 a piece.
And in terms of volatility, Bitcoin the value of Bitcoin has changed a little in the past few months and a few years. I have actually a very specific question on Duola and Mt. Gox, and I think it was just announced a couple of minutes ago that also Liberty Reserve was shut down for money laundering issues. And it looks like, although we have these issues, the value of Bitcoin hasn't changed that much. So do you think that people have the trust in Bitcoin strong enough to basically counter this kind of measures?
Well, inherently, Bitcoin is the most trustworthy currency in the world. With dollars or the Dwala, or I haven't heard the news about the other one that you just said there, but all of these, at any point, your money can be seized. With Bitcoin, if you keep your private keys private, there's not anything anyone in the entire world can do. So if you're worried about your account being seized, you should keep your money in Bitcoin, not in some other form.
Very, very interesting. And so let's now move to, as a consumer, say I want to start using Bitcoin. What would be the 101 guide to basically start using Bitcoins today, and what should people be careful about, for instance, in terms of security?
Sure. Part of that, I guess, depends on which country in the world you're in, but the first thing anybody anywhere in the world will need is a Bitcoin wallet. There's lots of different options in regards to that. A good place to go and start and to decide which version of the Bitcoin wallet you would like to use is bitcoin.org. Probably the most secure, but not necessarily the most user-friendly, is the main Bitcoin-Qt client. It takes a little bit of a while for that one to sync up with the network, but that's probably inherently the most secure. Another wallet that's still very, very secure and a lot more user-friendly is from www.blockchain.info. Those are the two main wallets that I would recommend to people. And once you have a Bitcoin wallet, then you have to go about buying Bitcoins or selling something to receive Bitcoins. And that'll kind of depend on which country in the world you're in. The best way to probably figure that out is just go and Google, buy Bitcoin Wiki. And then it'll bring up a page with a list of all the different countries and then the different methods available in each of those countries as to how to buy Bitcoins.
Okay. And so within that question, I look at, for instance, people around me that are maybe less tech savvy, and I wonder if you do think that at a certain point Bitcoin will has mass market and has as much of a commodity as it is, that my mother, for instance, will be able and tempted to use it. Because as far as I can tell right now, it is much for the tech-savvy people.
Right. Today, it's definitely still for the tech-savvy people, but you can be a whole lot less tech-savvy today to use Bitcoin than you could a year or two ago. And a year or two later from now, it'll be even easier for people like your grandmother to use it, because lots and lots of really talented software engineers are working on Bitcoin software that makes it easier for anyone to use. And we're starting to see some of those apps come out almost daily at this point.
Yeah, this is actually a good segue to, so you've been, of course, watching the Bitcoin space and industry for quite a while now. What are the most exciting trends and companies that you see right now are emerging, and what kind of ideas do you think we'll see in the near future?
One interesting business that's based in the US currently, but I hear they're looking to expand around the world, is a company called Coinbase.com. And basically, for anybody who's used PayPal, Coinbase works just like that. They link to your bank account, and then they can withdraw money from your bank account and give you Bitcoins, or you can send them Bitcoins and they'll deposit government-issued money right back into your bank account. And that's just incredibly convenient for anybody to use. And we're seeing that because they've just been overwhelmed by the amount of signups they've been having each day here in the US. So that's one example, but I'm sure there's lots of other businesses that are working on things like that. We're seeing lots of people trading precious metals. We're seeing lots of people selling all sorts of things. There's another company called bitmit.net that's basically a competitor to eBay, but it uses Bitcoins only. So there's just all sorts of people starting businesses using Bitcoins, and it's exciting to see all of those.
Definitely, and this is something that you will discuss on day 2 of LeWeb, with the pros and cons of Bitcoin. And we had also Anthony Gallipi in this Hangout, in the Hangout previously, who was the CEO of BitPay, which is another system to basically accept as a merchant, accept Bitcoin if you want to start accepting it. And regarding this question, do you think that businesses should start accepting only Bitcoin, or should they be also able to, do you see Bitcoin as being an alternative to current payment systems that people may or may not choose?
I don't think there's too many businesses in the world that will want to accept Bitcoin as their only form of payment to begin with. But who knows, maybe 5 or 10 years from now, when people realize just how much more convenient it is to use Bitcoin than to issue other government-issued currencies, maybe people will want to use it as their only form of currency. But we're still quite a ways away from that taking place. But for right now, it allows anyone to accept payment safely from anyone else anywhere in the world without risk of fraud, and that's the only payment system in the world that will allow that.
Okay, so we just have 2 people joining us. Do you have questions for Roger that you'd like to ask? Okay, maybe not at this point. Okay, great. So moving on within the theme of security and getting back to that, because I think that for the general public, or for most people, that's very important. I was wondering, if someone was to disturb the system, so if someone was to destabilize Bitcoin, how would they do it? I mean, what are the ways in which, obviously not revealing too much, in which you could technically create a situation where Bitcoin can be much more volatile than what it is right now?
Yeah, that's one of the most exciting things about Bitcoin, is for the Bitcoin network itself, the only way to shut it down would be to shut down all the basically the entire internet in the entire world would have to be turned off to stop the Bitcoin network itself. And I don't think that's too likely to happen. And if that happens, there'll be lots of other even bigger problems in the world. So that's one of the things that has me the most excited about Bitcoin, is the fact that it can't be shut down. As far as creating volatility in the market, Bitcoin's been really volatile already. I think it'll continue to be volatile for quite a while still as its market cap increases. But it's already much less volatile than it was a few years ago, and I'm sure as time goes by and its market expands and there's more and more users with more and more money in the system, the amount of volatility will decrease. But that'll take time and user growth.
Okay, and going to the physical world or connecting the digital and the physical world is certainly something that is interesting. Do you see the ability at any point in the near future for people to go to the grocery store and pay with Bitcoins?
Yeah, actually, I was just talking with the owner of a grocery store here in Silicon Valley, and he's probably a few more days or weeks from finishing the implementation so that anybody can buy groceries at the grocery store. But to be honest, I don't think using Bitcoins in real-world spaces, that's not their strongest use case. Their strongest use case is for using them over the internet. No one doesn't take PayPal seriously because you can't go into restaurants or grocery stores and pay with PayPal. And it's because people use it online all over the world. And I think we'll see Bitcoin used online all over the world first. And maybe someday we'll start seeing it in grocery stores and restaurants, but that's one of the least important use cases for Bitcoin.
Yeah, okay. So, questions at this point? Okay, still no questions.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, exactly. You don't bite, right?
I don't. I'm friendly.
Okay. So, so of course, Bitcoin is not the only virtual currency competing on the market. I mean, what are the weaknesses that you see in other currencies or online currencies that make it less likely to succeed compared to Bitcoin?
There's a couple of kind of clones of Bitcoin that are basically the same as Bitcoin and just have slightly different properties, which are interesting and fine, but at this point Bitcoin is what has critical mass and has the most users and the most websites that accept it. So I don't think it's going to be too likely that Bitcoin winds up being displaced by one of the others. Bitcoin is different from every other digital currency that's existed before, like PayPal or Linden Dollars or World of Warcraft Gold, in that there's no central issuer. With Bitcoin, the ledger is distributed on all the computers around the world that are running the Bitcoin software. So there's no single place that any government or company or law enforcement agency could go to say, update this ledger, freeze Roger's account, or do this or do that. There's no place that they can go to, whereas with PayPal, at any point, anyone can go to PayPal and say, freeze this person's account or reverse that transaction or do whatever arbitrary thing they decide they want to have done. With Bitcoin, that's impossible because the ledger is distributed all over the entire planet, and that's never existed before Bitcoin. So that's one of the key aspects to realize about Bitcoin. Another key aspect to realize is that the supply of Bitcoins are limited. There can't just be more Bitcoins made up out of thin air. There will never, ever, ever be more than 21 million Bitcoins in the entire world. So as more and more people start to use Bitcoin, the exchange rate between Bitcoins and dollars, we'll have to see the price of Bitcoins increase in terms of dollars. We've already seen that. When I first heard of Bitcoin 2.5 years ago, one Bitcoin was less than 10 cents. Today, they're over $100 each. And in the future, if Bitcoin becomes really incredibly popular, each Bitcoin will have to be worth thousands, if not tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars a piece. Currently in the world, there's only around 11 million Bitcoins. If you think about it, that's not, I'm in California currently, that's not even enough Bitcoin for everyone in the state of California to have one whole Bitcoin. Yet this is a worldwide currency that can be used by anyone on the entire planet. So if Bitcoin becomes really popular, the price of Bitcoins in terms of dollars or euros or yen is going to have to skyrocket. We're already starting to see that happen.
Okay, so on wrapping up this sort of with a future question, how do you see Bitcoin evolving? I mean, what are the next things you're really excited about and you're really looking forward? Because I mean, there's a lot of potential for the future of Bitcoin. I think we can all agree on that. But I was wondering if you have a couple of specific things where you see that the revolution or the impact will be huge.
Sure, there's a couple of things. I think one of the most exciting is that we're going to see all the foreign exchange companies get on board the Bitcoin bandwagon pretty soon and allow people to trade Bitcoin as one of the currency pairs. So you'll be able to trade to and from dollars in Bitcoin or euros or yen or whatever you want. And once all these foreign exchange businesses that allow people to trade Bitcoin are open and available for the public, that's just going to be huge, give a huge amount of additional liquidity for Bitcoin, which I think is a good thing. Another thing that we're going to see pretty soon is all these federated shopping sites where there's one shopping cart platform used by thousands of merchants. We're going to see some of these come on board and accept Bitcoin yet. So rather than hearing about one or two businesses at a time accepting Bitcoin, we're going to hear about suddenly thousands of businesses accepting Bitcoin at a time. And I think that's going to really help drive mass adoption. And then when you can go and tell anybody, yeah, you can buy Bitcoin, you can buy just about anything with Bitcoin online, which we're getting close to at this point, but it's still a little bit difficult. But when we see the majority of websites on the internet accepting Bitcoin, that'll be a real crossing point.
Yeah, of course. And finally, where do you see yourself and your business in the middle of that? I mean, what role are you hoping to play in that long process of taking over the world, if you wish?
Sure. With bitcoinstore.com, because I'm selling more than 500,000 products, most of which are cheaper than Amazon, I'm trying to put pressure on websites like Amazon and Newegg and Buy.com and Tiger Direct and companies like this to have to accept Bitcoin in order to compete. And that's my main goal with Bitcoin Store, is to put pressure on existing businesses to have to accept Bitcoin. And the reason I'm able to undercut them currently is because I don't accept credit cards or PayPal, so I don't have to pay any of the fees associated with them, and I don't have to deal with any of the fraud risks that are associated with traditional payment methods. So I think the business model is really proven. We've sold close to $500,000 worth of stuff the first month we opened, and that's all sales that would have gone to other businesses had they been accepting Bitcoin. And so I think that'll really push existing merchants to accept Bitcoin. So that's my short-term goal.
Yeah, it will prove a point. Okay, Roger. Thank you very much for joining us. So Roger will be with us at LeWeb on June 5 and 6. It will be on stage on June 6 in the day 2 of LeWeb. It will discuss, of course, the pros and cons of Bitcoin. You can, I hope, join him in London and have a chat about the future of Bitcoin as well. Thank you very much for hanging out with the community. The video will be available on www.youtube.com/LeWeb, and you can get all the information about LeWeb at www.leweb.co.
And if you don't know about Bitcoin, Google it, because it's going to be the most exciting thing at LeWeb.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Roger.
Thank you.